guys, it's me, Jackie Clayton with Recruiting Daily. I'm glad that you're here for Recruiting Live. And I'm not going to lie, I just ran all over the place to plug my computer in. So if I look a little, I'm sure some of you guys have seen that. But I am really happy here to be with Marc Coleman, extraordinaire, brilliant genius of all time, right? You're going to live up to that, right, Marc?
Oh, you're too kind. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, just for people who are just come in for the first time, know that this is for you guys. We want to get your questions answered. We're going to engage with Marc. We love him at Recruiting Daily, but this is about you getting answers to your questions. So do that by putting them here in the question box over here. We'll make sure that he gets them answered. And you can also put it on Twitter by adding the hashtag #RDaily. That being said, I know we are like best friends, but for those that don't know your background, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about Marc Coleman?
Ouch. Well, I started HR Tech in 2011 in Amsterdam. I think we had a rocky start. It was me on my own, so it was very... do you know the story? Have you talked to William and the guys about this?
I have, but all these people, they've never heard it.
Yeah, so it was born out of recession, and yeah, everyone just felt we hit the market at the right time, and it's kind of gone from 400 people to 4,000 people in a very short period of time.
Wow, yeah, that is a very short period of time. And I wanted to ask you, because I know a lot of people have seen it, like, what do you think are like the top 2 to 3 major changes that you've seen in the last 6 years or so since the difference between you started, not just the people who come, but within technology specifically? What have you seen?
Well, I think the cloud, no? The cloud was probably the big thing when we started there, and I think now it's the consumerization of HR, so people kind of want to sit inside their houses and you know, go to work and consume the same kind of technology that they're consuming at home. So I think that's what people are enjoying today, not the world of Outlook and email. They're enjoying the world of Slack. You know, this kind of Slack environment where it's instant messaging and there's not so much politics, that you kind of get the dear and yours sincerely and all this kind of stuff that you get with typing an email together that might take half an hour to an hour and might contain emotional messages and stuff like that. So I think that's probably the biggest change I've seen is that we all kind of want to go to work and enjoy technology that's at the same level that we're, as we were talking about earlier, the same as an iPhone. So if you go to work and you're using technology from 10 years ago, it's not so much fun. So, and I think that's where you hear a lot of people suffering. I think when we started in the business in 2011, the big words were integration. That was the big pain that everyone in Europe at least was faced with, was trying to integrate all these other technologies. And so I'm not the biggest technologist in the world. I love it, I enjoy it, but I think for example, again, the Slack model is like anyone can literally get on there and integrate, you know, all the different things, all the different technologies that are in your life. So whether it's calendars or project management software, you know, everything that we use, we're able to pull it in with ease, and there's no additional expense and stuff like that. And so the user experience is much more enjoyable. So, and I think this affects everything in technology as well. So things like user adoption. So we struggle with some of our bigger enterprise software that we use as a company, but we see our customers going through much more difficult pain. So I think that's probably the biggest change I've seen out there, is the consumerization of HR.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you brought up an interesting point. You kind of triggered me when you were talking about Slack. So all of these companies, I was talking to a company the other day that was talking about millennials. Like, they literally went on for a full 2 minutes, which, you know, if you're in a demo, that's a really long time to talk about millennials. And so they asked me what I thought about it, and I said, well, I think that you don't want me as a customer because I'm too old to use this product. So it kind of was like, and what was interestingly interesting to me was that it talked about the adoption of a text is appreciated by 29% of Generation X versus like 19% of millennials. So my question, because I thought that was really strange, do you think that, you know, technology is built more for millennials, or is it just people need to adopt across the board because we're all using technology? I found that really odd.
It's a good question. I don't know. I saw something similar recently at a conference where they kind of put, you know, all the different generations, and everyone got boxed in, and so I found myself being that Gen X, and you're kind of like still the telephone with the
right.
getting the zero to go. It's a different time, so my kids don't know what they actually asked me what, you know, the old telephone. They didn't know what it was.
I cannot imagine a phone being stuck to the wall. Like, where do you go with that?
With cables and stuff like that. Yeah, it makes no sense to them. So, no, I don't think. Again, when I started out in the HR field 10 years ago, we looked at the generational stuff, and we were getting excited about it because, you know, we suddenly kind of had these buzzwords of Generation X and Generation Y. But I turned around to Peter, who was my partner in crime at the time, and I kind of said, yeah, I'm not so sure this is the direction for us, you know, is to try and put everyone into that box. You know, people try to put young people into that box now. They say they wouldn't work to warm themselves and stuff like that. But I think all the generations coming through have the same ambitions and dreams and want to be successful and stuff like that. It might be a bit more Hollywood now and stuff. Yeah, everyone kind of wants to be an entrepreneur and stuff like that. But there's plenty of people out there willing to work hard and kind of further their careers as quickly as possible. So I think with the generational thing, I don't know. I don't put myself into that box. I think the digital natives are just, you know, they don't, none of them use Facebook kind of anything. That's not the place to be kind of thing. So there's that cool thing. But I think for me, I'm turning 40 years old. I give a go at everything that's out there. I don't put myself into a box. I was kind of told back in the day that Twitter was kind of for the younger generation, younger than me. But I didn't want, you know, I gave it a go, and I still do a little bit on Twitter. But yeah, it just depends who you talk to. It really depends on your interests, again, I guess, at the end of the day. So.
Well, do you think all these communication tools, right, all of these things were built in the name of being able to communicate better and faster? Do you think that they're actually that with all these tools we're learning to communicate better and faster, or do you see it as a hindrance to the communication process?
Yeah, okay, so that's a good question as well. We started out in 2011. We've kind of gotten to unleash our people as unleash your people as the tagline, but back in the day it was optimize and enable. You know, optimize, enable, and unleash your people. So again, we're kind of doing an advert for, or I'm doing an advert for Slack here, but just as an example, against email, I had to work very hard to stop email myself because it was just consuming time. And so how you work your day, so you kind of get up in the morning, you do email, you finish your day, you do email and stuff like that. But there's this stuff in between, there's the mission critical stuff. And like I said, putting together an email is this formality of dear, and then can become an essay, and then you start editing, and it's so time consuming. But for us, there's a communication obviously still with the customer that we do it that way, but internally, you kind of got to set rules. I had to set rules so people actually stop using email, and that's painful. Whether you're a small business or a big business, it's painful for people to go through that. And then as you go through it, there's no other way of going through these things. You could bring consultants in and stuff like that, but I think you just got to dive in and manage the expectations and get the buy-in from the staff. So it's very easy for people to send announcements. So we have an announcements channel. We have a random channel. So that could be like a questionnaire asking all the staff to kind of say what's the best date to kind of do this in summertime. And then of course it's very distracting. It can stop them from doing their work. So there's a huge distraction with these modern tools. So I think everything in moderation, and you've kind of got to set rules and guidelines. I've also seen people. I was in Anaheim there a couple of months ago at a recruiter conference. Just kind of, it was like crashing a wedding or something like that. I just arrived and I knew plenty of the people there, but they were having a conversation about this, and we were talking about just the rules that you need to have in place, you know, as kind of guidelines across the business. Because you know, some of them, for example, were using Slack as a project management tool, and that's something that, you know, I've used from the onset. That, you know, this is not the way to communicate with one another. It's not professional. If you're setting up a task or a project, then it's got to be clearly communicated, and that's got to go through the project management software. Yeah, and so but we use Slack to kind of get updates and, you know, pings, and kind of, you know, it keeps everyone in touch. But you still, it's just like our event. I'm still a big, I'm Irish, so I'm kind of like that anyways, or we are like that as a society. We kind of say hello to everyone, even if they're a stranger. So I think those little guidelines that you put in place are really essential. But the speed at which you can use these tools and get work done and communications on the fly is fantastic. And we live like this, you know. You had, I guess when I started in the profession 10 years ago, you had people or companies banning Facebook and Gmail accounts and Yahoo and all this kind of stuff. And I used to be a blogger back then, so I had the freedom to call you know, a spade a spade. I didn't have to be as kind of, I feel a bit more like an analyst now. I've kind of got to sit on the fence for a lot of things. But, you know, we called the companies out back then, and all those companies now, of course, they don't have the same restrictions in place. But, you know, if you've got your staff engaged, these are things you don't have to worry about, I'm afraid. Because, you know, for example, in our workplace, I know the staff go home at night, or, you know, they're there on the weekends, and they do little bits of research and work and stuff like that. So that's the kind of lives we're all living now. You know, it's no longer a work-life balance. It's kind of work-life. It's kind of blended together.
Well, and it's so easy now, right? Like, you have your phone, you can look at your email, you can look up the research, you can send the messaging out. It's just, it has been easier. But I think we talked about this earlier before live, about how with all of these things going on in the enterprise, we noticed that human resources seems to be a little bit slow to adopt. What is your opinion on that? Like, why do you think that happens, and what can you do to bring HR on board?
I don't know. I guess that's why they were all in a job. You know, I guess that's why we all have jobs. It's a tough one. I talked to Spotify about this yesterday in Sweden, and they were talking about building a modern HR department, and they face the same challenges. You know, we started a think tank last year with Deutsche Telekom on how to digitize HR, because, you know, it's again, if you look to maybe 2011 when we really started in the HR technology space, it was all about the cloud. But now when I talk to investors, it's investors in startups in the HR space. They feel like it's the last place to be disrupted. So they've kind of had their fun everywhere else, but HR is kind of where investors are getting really, really excited by at the moment. And you can see it. You can see, you know, I was talking to Bill over lunch today, and he was talking about, you know, they've got 20 million, they're just about to get another 20 million. They're the kind of numbers that are getting touted around, and these companies are, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 usually nerds or guys kind of working in them. So it is, yeah, I've seen it over the years. HR has always lost to the table, and they're easily led. So, you know, I've seen all the models as well, which I've kind of been anti Ulrich model and stuff like that, the HR business partner. So, for example, you've seen a whole world of people. I think the numbers are like 17% or 20%, but you've seen the world of HR people adopting these job titles, that they're HR business partners, and suddenly they're, you know, more business focused, and they're going to get more respect from the business and stuff like that. But it's not the case.
I've always been the one who said that we should have, that HR should be reporting to operations. That's a whole, like a whole different. we could spend 3 hours talking about.
You could spend 3 hours. I think that the great thing about HR is it's a window to everywhere else, and that's why I wanted to get into the business, because you know it's learning, it's leadership, it's development, it's technology, it's the heart of the business. So if you don't have your HR right, you know, you're really going to suffer as a business. I'm also on the other side that I do believe. Mike Ettling he's kind of had this presentation in the last 12 months, is the future of HR is no HR. And so I think, you know, HR has been, so much has been thrown on HR, it's impossible to deal with all of it. You know, there's culture, there's performance, benefits, technology. You know, you've had the big data thing for the last 5 years. For me in Europe, I'm kind of a big fan of, you know, HR analytics, but, you know, most of the stuff they're consuming is off the shelf. And so if I ask my customer, big enterprise in Germany or Denmark, where they put themselves on a scale of 1 to 10, they're still putting themselves at number 1 after 5 years of big data HR kind of stuff. So it's been very, very slow, very, very slow. And it's such a fun area, and it's an area for HR to chase down. But again, it just feels like this world of benchmarking. Everyone's been caught up in this world of, you know, trying to copy everyone else, trying to plagiarize everyone else, whereas they're, you know, not so much hooked into what the CEO is looking for. You know, what's the strategy, not for 5 years, but the next, you know, 1 to 3 years, you know, more zoomed in on that. And I mean, if you are looking at the 5 years, then it's what we were talking about before, the fourth industrial revolution, this exponential convergence of technology and disruption that's going on in the marketplace. There's this, you know, there's this kind of stuff that where not just industries are being completely disrupted, like we use the word Uberized and stuff like that, but you can also see Uber suffering recently from a lot of HR issues. Yeah, so these fast-growing companies, you know, they struggle through these things. And I think, you know, when you listen to these companies and get closer to them, like our jobs, you can forgive this to a point as long as they change it. Yeah, so I think that's the importance. I still believe HR is the most important function in a business, and yeah, there's always a reason for it. But you know, if you look at, you know, so the question is why is HR last at the table? I think one of my ones with Josh Burson was that I felt that there's a lot of people that don't, for example, in university, don't get their university degree. They don't get enough points for it. And they see something like organizational psychology instead of psychology, which has got like 100 points less, and they kind of go, oh, I'll have a go at that. So I think before people, you know, actually know what they're getting into, they've kind of gotten degrees, a 4-year degree or a 5 years master's in organizational psychology, and they're not HR people in their DNA. So I personally, the HR people, the best HR people that I meet are from operations, which you said before. They have no HR certifications and stuff like that. And so we're surrounded by a very powerful industry. And again, my motivations for being in HR as well was when I looked around and I saw all the PwCs and the Ernst & Young, you know, the big four.
Yes.
They have their legal and financial practices, but their big bread and butter company, or the money they make, is actually from HR. So you know, the consultants that come into the business, so it's very powerful. And so you've got SHRM in the US, very powerful institution, as big as the Vatican in terms of, you know, owning property and stuff like, or real estate and stuff like that. And again, people are going through certifications and points and stuff like that, and I believe in, obviously, education and stuff like that, but I think they're a little bit behind, not just a little bit, a good bit behind the curve in terms of the disruption that's going on in the workplace. And I think the same for the industrial education that most people are going through. We hear it all the time. People that come into the job here and just work for HRN, they learn more in 3 months about the world of business than they did in a 4-year degree, business degree, that is. And I think that's the same for HR. So I think that's one of the big struggles. Whereas if you kind of look at for example, the recruitment function, they're a different breed of people. They're a more fun crowd. For us, the HR crowd are they're a little bit more stiff. The recruiters are more salesy, and then the techies are kind of more green personalities. That's what I love as well. So in the field that we work in, we've got so many different personas to work around. So I think, but if you look at recruitment, their inspiration typically comes from marketing. Yeah, that's what they enjoy, and so that's what you enjoy at the moment. You see all this employer branding. You know, it's kind of all the rage at the moment. So I think. Sorry, that's a long-winded approach to it, but that's certainly what I've seen or you know, justifying the reasons why HR has lasted at the table.
Well, and really quick, you brought up something I'm going to get right back to about HRN. But first, as a friendly reminder, if you do have questions, put them in the box. Rob and Alan and Ryan, I see you. We're going to get to those questions, I promise. But you can also put them on Twitter with the hashtag of our daily, and we'll make sure to get those answered. Or, you know, I'll just send it because you have nothing to do. Oh, wait, I think there's a conference going on, but maybe I can just, you know, I'll make sure that they get answered by Mark. But you brought up HRN, which is important because some folks, like HRN and HR tech world is a new process. We're excited, or a new event, and we're excited to say that it's new in the U.S. You're going to be in San Francisco. When are you going to be there again? What are the dates again?
We're running on, the main event is on the 14th and 15th of June, so 2 weeks time. So anyone out there, if you're still looking to get there, you've got 2 weeks to book on. And we're doing, excuse me, to warm things up in a very American way, we're doing pre-events, or in a very San Francisco way, we're doing a lot of pre-events. So we've got Jason Averbrook, who's doing a workshop on the consumerization of HR. It's exclusive, he's never done it before, and so he's talking about how to build a digital strategy. And I think there's a whole world of people out there that will be looking to get involved in that. And on the other side, so again, the event itself is in Fort Mason. So at the General's residence, which is overlooking the whole Bay Area, we're running an event called Unleash, and it's going to be all about recruitment. So we have two sides of the building. On one side, we have all the TA crowd. So there's going to be, I think, about 20 sessions from talent acquisition directors from many different companies, and on the other side we have all the CEOs from disruptive startups, showcasing, doing show and tell and stuff like that. And we're going to have investors and analysts there as well, kind of, you know, asking very difficult questions and talking about where people should be spending their money and what they should be investing in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, now, bringing that up, what do you think people should be investing their money in the next 2 to 3 years? If you had, from a very high level, I don't want to put you on the spot, or, you know, I don't want people to come back and look at this and say, he told me this was going to work. But where do you see, as far as the technology, where people should be investing their time and resources?
It's an impossible question to answer, but I would say the appetite, I'm seeing more and more, like, especially in the small to medium-sized sector, the appetite for, you know, the old days where kind of technology contracts, you hear it from the big boys where the contracts are anything from 4 to 8 years, and those things don't happen so much anymore, you know. If it doesn't do what it says on the tin, people don't have a tolerance for keeping it. So, you know, it's impossible to answer that question because you could be talking about a new core HR system. I think, you know, technologies. I think the thinking that, you know, when I joined the industry, was that the big boys were kind of slumbering along. They were like big whales, and the sharks were kind of eating them on the side and stuff like this. And so there's been a lot of consolidation in the marketplace since. I think people will be very surprised that, you know, innovation isn't just at the smaller, you know, the small startup. It's, you know, that's where the buzz is. So everyone tries to kind of, you know, think that's where it's all going on, but it's not. There's, you know, SAP, Workday, ADP. These guys have some really cool, innovative products that have come to market in the last 12 months. And you've got the whole cognitive HR space coming through at the moment. I think That's really exciting. So, you know, no more HR admin, no more HR assistants and stuff like that. I think on the edge, so you know what I mentioned about the investors being really excited. I think one of the considerations the big boys and maybe even the startups haven't seen, or they probably have seen, they're clever enough to watch this. The Google at work, the Facebook at work, the Amazon, we talk about call centers, the automation of work and stuff like that. So IBM is kind of, is the first company I think most of us would look to in that space. But parallel with that, you've got Amazon coming through with very similar projects as well. So I saw them kind of looking at our event 3 years ago. They started sponsoring, and I was like, why is Amazon sponsoring our event? It made no sense to me, but now it's very clear. And you see companies like Salesforce, they don't have the kind of the HR product being advertised at the moment, but if you look inside their business, they have an army of people that are working to build HR products. So there's a whole enterprise market out there. Microsoft, how could I talk about this without mentioning Microsoft? So I think you're going to see a lot of other players. It's going to get really, really more competitive, and that's good for the industry. That's good for the customer.
Well, now, we had several people ask this question. I appreciate Rob Miner for being here, and Ellen Leary, and Mark Fogel, excuse me, thanks for coming. And they all kind of asked a question around the same thing, and I know you're going to love this question. What's next in HR and talent acquisition?
In talent acquisition, I'd say platforms. I was at the Cornerstone On Demand event last year. I didn't get to go. I don't get to go this year, unfortunately. I just had a back operation. But I think there's the convergence of, everyone's been building CRMs, and we've kind of gone through all of that now. So I think, you can't avoid it. It's every conversation that you get into is this world of platforms and AI. Artificial intelligence, met with the gang at Salesforce at the end of last year, and they're talking about using AI just for meetings, which I love, because we do meetings in our company. I don't know about your company, but sometimes, or always, there's one person that shouldn't be there, kind of thing. So Mark was telling me, Marc Benioff was saying that he's creating this AI that will basically decide who should be in the meetings. Now, not just internally in the company, but also externally as well. And so if you think of that, like, Salesforce operates CRMs, everything is very similar to the world of recruitment. So your AI should be able to tell you, what meetings you should be arranging with what candidates and stuff like that. So, and we've seen some technology in London about 3 months ago, AI technology that was basically able to shortlist candidates for a job in 20 minutes, what it took 3 people to do in 2 days. So, yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that's out there. It's real. It's real. There's no getting away from it. Those products are not yet on sale, but that's what's going on. I think it's very exciting. So, yeah, it's all automation at the moment. I think that's the biggie.
That makes it interesting. And I know we're running out of time. Again, I'm going to make sure that he answers some questions. But what do you think, like, if you look at everything that's going on, within HR, if somebody wants to be disruptive, or they want to make sure they're at the cutting edge, or they want to be a disruptor, become the change, what steps would you recommend? And this is coming from Charlotte Ford. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. But so what steps would you recommend for someone who wants to be a disruptor and become the change that's needed in HR or HR tech?
Well, oh God, that's a tough one. Well, you've got to know your marketplace. I see. It's funny. All the startups that we've run the competition here in Europe for the last 5 years. We've ran 2 competitions for the last 3 years, one in London, one in Paris, and of course this year we're going to Amsterdam. So you see a lot of people plagiarizing or copying one another. So I think that's something that there's just too much of that. So are you dressing it up, or are you really being disruptive?
Right. And
are you really like an Uber? Are you coming along and really bringing that kind of change around? That Steve Jobs thing of you know, if you did ask the marketplace, are they looking for an iPhone? No, no one was looking for an iPhone at the time. So if you were kind of going with the data or the marketplace, then yeah, it's more of a gut reaction, isn't it? So, you know, and I think what's his name at PayPal, Bezos, he's kind of the same. He's the same, that he's all about building the technology, and he just doesn't want to go out there and be this kind of marketing engine, if you will. He's of the opinion, if he builds the technology that the consumer needs, the user experience, if it's that good, that engaging, then the customers tell everyone about it. And to be quite honest, that's been our strength as a business. We have had literally no marketing as part of our business for the last 5 years. Most of our marketing is word of mouth. It's analysts talking to analysts, it's sponsors talking to sponsors. So, you know, that's been our biggest voice. And the transparency that I've enjoyed as well is social media. So your brand has to be through. You have to be true to yourself all the ways through. You know, I think people, you know, in our industry, for example, in the events industry, there's so many, you know, so many events that all look and feel the same. It's what I call the factory-driven approach. It's industrial. So I think you know, as a step, I think you've got to ask yourself why you're getting into it. Because if it's just for the money, you're not going to be that disruptive. You know, your passion has to be beyond making money and stuff like that. So, and so for us, we're passionate about helping businesses change, about making work a better place. I think we're, you know, these architects, we're part, you know, together, everyone together, Recruiting Daily, HRN, SAP, everyone together, we're part of this very exciting space at the moment where we're all talking about, you know, what's it called, universal, where everyone's enjoying universal income and stuff like this. And about the scarcity of jobs and stuff like that. So I don't think we have to scaremonger the world, but we have to prepare the world for it. So that's the kind of disruption that we would look to, is that you're part of something special. So, and that you can be passionate about it, and you can build a team around this, because it's very hard to build a team around something that doesn't have meaning and purpose or that kind of passion.
Well, you know what, and I really appreciate you. I know we went a little bit over, but I appreciate you. I think you're something special, and we just love what you're doing. Just so everybody who's watching, this is going to be recorded. They're also going to send you a link so that you can register for HR Tech World in San Francisco. We'll make sure that you have all of that information. And I told you the 30 minutes goes so fast. I just, you know. It goes really fast, but I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope that you come back, and I really appreciate your insight. So everybody, thank you so much for coming, and we'll be sending the recording soon. Thanks, Mark.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.